Horrible is back in session, and on today's episode, we learn how to cook the perfect YouTube intro from home using simple ingredients. We start with 2 dashes of olive oil, not 3. People often add milk for density. This is a mistake. Now once you get that to a satisfying simmer, you want to add just a dash of stupidity for flavor. Fuck! Phew! That one sure left us with more questions than answers, didn't it? I actually think this is arguably the best written and best shot episode of the season, which is really fitting considering artistry is one of the heavier themes of the episode. God, I sound like Florence. Insert generic spoiler warning here for Season 4, Episode 5 of Slasher, Flesh and Blood. Let's break it down! So we open with Liv making her way back to the house. She goes upstairs to discover all of the knife holes from Vincent and Florence's amateur attempted assassination. Alliteration. There's a really cool shot of a blurry figure behind her. It's just angled really well. Gave me very shape-like vibes. It's Vincent, and Liv asks him, "Where's my mom?" He says, "Dead." Oh, son of a bitch. I hope. She asks, "What'd you do to her?" He brushes it off. She tries to reason with him, saying, "Hey, I know what she did was fucked up, but that doesn't give you a right to hurt her." Vincent kind of trances into this monologue about the time he was kidnapped and what it was like, and pissing and shitting in a trunk, and it is some great acting. Vincent gives a little chuckle and then swings at Liv. But as we're all well aware, Liv is a servant hands specialist, and serve them she does. I want to point out, it seems as though Liv handled Vincent a lot easier than she did the gentleman when they had their little encounter by the boathouse. She gets him on the ground into an armbar. The rest of the family comes running in, and she says she's gonna break it if they don't tell her where Brigitte is. They don't know, and she doesn't break it. I really wanted her to break it. Liv tells Theo what happened, and he decides they need to go search for Brigitte. Vincent and Florence are discussing that they might not be able to trust Theo as much as they want. O'Keefe, ever being the peacemaker, defends Theo and actually Liv. Florence disagrees with a mini monologue, mostly focused on, again, the themes of us versus them. Really great cinematography. I can't even really describe it. There's a shot with the mirror and O'Keefe, and the way it shifts at the end of it, it's just great. Cut to Theo and Liv on the beach searching for Brigitte. "Hey Liv, why don't you ask him where the hell he went last night?" Theo seems to spot the corpse in the distance first. Is this suspicious? Possibly. Liv's eyes follow, and she knows what she sees. She runs over, and let me tell you, capital A acting. I assume the water washed away some of the sand, and you can see Brigitte's dead face, and then a crab walks over it and right onto her eyeball, and it... very good stuff. Then we cut to a scene in what I presume and really hope is some kind of walk-in cooler. The reason I hope that is because Grace is in there and she's talking to Jaden's corpse. Oh yeah, you guys remember Jaden? He was a thing. Then O'Keefe walks in, apologizes for disturbing her, and says they just sent her to get some stuff for breakfast. I'm sorry, you're keeping the food with the corpses? And I lean towards this being a very nicely done subtle detail of humor, or just an example of how, rich people got it so good that when real shit goes down, they don't know how to handle it properly. O'Keefe says some very lovely things about Jaden, and then we cut to them preparing breakfast. They're making Moroccan omelets. The gist is that O'Keefe doesn't know how to cook, and I'm going to come back to this because the subtle character development for O'Keefe in this episode is very well done. Grace fires off some instructions like she's LL Cool J making a goodbye video in Deep Blue Sea. And this whole scene really plays as this really cute bonding moment, and also doubles as this moment of simplicity and escape and therapy, especially for Grace having this parental moment with O'Keefe. Florence creeps on in, and you can tell she seems to be a little territorial over the motherly duties that she's mostly ignored her whole life. Flashback scene of Florence in what I'm going to assume is her art den. This is another example of just great set decoration. Grace ends up coming on in, and Florence is trying to explain to her her new masterpiece of art. Great comedic shot of Grace looking over at it and just being like, the fuck is that thing? And Florence is basically like, yeah, you don't understand art, you're just not sophisticated enough. The pretentious dialogue from Florence throughout this entire episode is so on point. The flashback ends, as does the scene with Florence trying to ruin their moment by making an eating fingers comment. Then we get a cool tour de corpse of all the bodies we have collected up until this point. I just love the idea behind the scenes of like, hey, no, don't throw that half Slamus away, we're gonna use that later. And the gist of this scene is Liv trying to convince Theo they need to get off the island, it's not safe. And Theo's a little hesitant because he says neither is taking the boat, and she eventually convinces him as long as the boat will be safe. Then we get a really cool and useful shot of all the corpses that are sitting there in the cooler. Now, I'm no Dead Meat James, but I was able to pause it and count at minimum 5 bodies. This tells us 2 things. Number 1, Spencer's body has been moved. I'll get back to that later. Number 2, if you look below Brigitte, you see another corpse with long, dark hair. This has to be Trin, there's no one else it could be. So this also just deadens that theory that Trin's actually still alive and they faked that whole wood chipper thing. So they're all eating breakfast and the bell tolls. Cabinet unlocks. Florence goes to open it. Bunch of guns. Don't worry, they're not real guns. Ooh, unless someone pulled a Child's Play 3. So this week's Slash Fiverr challenge really decides to shake things up. The note says they have 15 minutes to go out and find a place to hide, and then it's hunting season. Instead of a one loser elimination, this week's actually an immunity challenge. The winner and runner-up are going to get to stay in the bunker until the next challenge and breathe free and easy. Damn, that's good foreshadowing. There's no protective equipment because Spencer believed that scars will help you remember where you went wrong. Not only is it a great line, but it keeps adding to this element of Spencer where his principles seem almost well-intended, but his execution is just so damn extreme and sociopathic. I love that Liv is the first one to the guns and takes two so she can pick out the best parts and put them together. So Afra grabs a gun and Christy, she doesn't wig, she more toupees. She's saying, no, Afra's not playing, it's not safe. And Afra has this animalistic mode that comes over her as she's like growling with the gun in her hand. As she's struggling with it with Christy, she rips it out of her hands and shoots Theo like right here, and that's how we find out they're actually rubber bullets in the guns, not paintballs. Vincent's like, man, this is gonna be dangerous, we should pad up, and Liv just cocks her gun and she's like, you better. Total action hero line. Vincent comes to the obvious realization that Liv's gonna be a problem in this competition. She better not be camping. As they all leave, Christy has the great comedic line of, don't shoot Afro in the face! Cut to O'Keefe and Florence walking through the woods. And this is where the other theme really starts to make itself apparent. O'Keefe has a bad gun, Florence suggests cleaning it, and O'Keefe doesn't know how. Florence convinces O'Keefe to hide out and just wait until Florence comes back and says it's all clear. I'm not gonna lie, I literally laughed out loud to myself and said, ma'am, you don't have a trigger finger. How are you gonna win this? Why do I do these things to myself? Florence was obviously a shitty parent and did not instill O'Keefe with the necessary tools to be a functioning adult. O'Keefe is kinda almost childlike. So everyone groups up and agrees to go take out Liv, and then they'll duke it out by themselves afterwards. Theo says that he's not gonna let them all bully Liv. Vincent and Florence question Theo's loyalty to the family and again accuse him of wanting some of that sweet, sweet Liv action. Vincent and Florence are really starting to have some of that fun back and forth type of chemistry that I've been wanting from them all season. Then Theo calls them not a family and goes on this nice, well-written, well-acted tangent, and then he kind of goes a bit too far. Even I literally was watching it, was like, okay dude, that's too much. And Vincent agrees and shoots him, and he's out of this competition. Flashback to Florence trying to sell her art to an art director, collector, person. Look, we've already firmly established I'm uncultured swine. She had already submitted her work and wasn't contacted, so she just showed up. And the art director's not having it. He rips into her, talking about how she's not an artist, he sees her type all the time, she has no creativity, she copied an artist, tells her if she wants to be taken seriously, maybe she should cut her ear off, like then, ugh, get bodied. Absolutely the unsung hero of this episode. Cut back, and Afra spots Liv. Afra seems to really enjoy these challenges. Afra has bad form, and she's the first to get shot now. So because Vinny Sant is too busy talking shit, he doesn't realize that Liv is on the move. She sneaks up right close behind him, hits him with 2 in the sternum, and then 2 in the throat, and he's lying there in his Tommy Jarvis jacket. You're out of there. So then somehow, Grace manages to sneak up on Liv without her seeing, hits her, pulling the greatest upset since Nick Foles beat Tom Brady. And then as a group, she's like, I can't believe we got her. And then Florence just pulls her gun up right, point blank, shoots her in the fucking eye. A motherfucking eye for a finger. Florence grabs O'Keefe and they go to the bunker. Another really cool set. As they're getting comfy, Florence looks in the fridge and goes, oh look, a pizza. And then O'Keefe goes, all somber, is like, Theo loves pizza. I guess that makes him fucking what, Theonardo? Does that make Spencer Splinter? Or Shredder? Cut to close-up of some solid grade A eye gore. This show is more cruel to eyes than Black Xmas. Everyone else is also nursing their wounds, and Christy says that they are out of gauze and that Grace might lose the eye. Afra eats some blood. I don't know if it's relevant. At this point, I just like to keep a running tally. Theo says that Spencer did renovations there and that that's probably where they're hiding all of the good stuff that they need, all the weapons, the communication systems, etc. Cut to Florence and O'Keefe celebrating with some champagne that was left there for the winners. Florence basically says it's better that O'Keefe is down there because it would be impossible for her to choose between Theo and Vincent. Flashback to what I consider the best scene of the episode. Florence has Theo blindfolded and she brings him into a room full of sand. So what it is an art project recreation of Vincent's kidnapping. It is a very unsettling and amazing visual. Theo is obviously extremely distressed, and this entire episode, Theo absolutely kills it in the acting department. Really fucking great. Florence is trying to play it off like it's a helpful therapeutic experience because they don't talk about it, but really it's all about her, and she ironically calls it Save Me. Flash forward, Florence says her kids are her greatest works of art, blah blah, and then the bell tolls. The steel doors shut, a screen pops up, and we get our weekly dose of John Kramerberg. Kramerberg says that you make your own damn luck, luck had nothing to do with this, and that you have to be absolutely ruthless and make cold decisions in the business world. Says that'll be tested their whole lives starting now. He says only one can win. Gas starts filling the room. O'Keefe flips, tries to run and get out. Florence tries to calm O'Keefe down and says, hey, this is a safe room. There's got to be oxygen and there's got to be masks. Start looking. Damn, they went from immunity challenge winners to escape room participants like that. They begin coughing a lot and then they find the oxygen mask and the oxygen tank. They do quickly question whether or not it's actually going to be oxygen, and Florence takes the first inhale. Selfish or selfless? Stay tuned to find out. Florence shares it with O'Keefe, and then we see a shot of the family trying to get into the bunker. Vincent says he might be able to override the anti-tamper switch, or some technical shit. Possibly a suspicious skill to have. Back in the bunker, O'Keefe and Florence are trading off the oxygen. Florence notices the tank is running real low, grabs the mask back. O'Keefe, struggling to breathe and gasping, starts reaching for the mask. Florence keeps denying the hand and denying the hand. It's a devastating scene and a devastating performance. Just really great facial acting from O'Keefe. O'Keefe lays down and begins foaming at the mouth, still making desperate pleas for one last grasp of oxygen. And we flash back to a scene where Theo confronts Florence about her recording him for her little sadistic art project. She says his recording is integral to the art and it's not about him, it's about her and her project. Theo threatens her with legal action, and then Florence goes on some extremely pretentious rant. Theo says, save it for somebody who doesn't know you have nothing valuable to say and you have no ability to see past yourself. Get bodied. Flash forward and the door to the bunker opens. Theo runs in, and then cut to black, and then cut back to laying O'Keefe's body down onto the ground. The mood is a very somber one as Christy checks the pulse of O'Keefe, and then looks at Florence and just goes, I'm sorry. O'Keefe is dead. Theo asks, what did you do down there? And as Florence begins to sob and cry, Theo runs down into the bunker. Once again, we go back to best shot and best acted episode of the season. This is a really cool, silent scene where we really only get the score and no sound about what's happening as Theo is just wrecking everything in the bunker. Florence is kind of in shock and just there was only one mask, there was only one. Theo is fresh out of fucks to give, and he grabs Florence and starts dragging her away. And I absolutely love the adorable shot of Afra paying her respects. Hashtag leaves for O'Keefe. Theo's got Florence by the hair and is dragging her, and she's pleading, Vincent, help, and Vincent's not gonna do shit. He's tired of your shit too. Theo says he's putting her on trial. He drags her over to that goofy ass weird sculpture she had made in the first episode. He ties her up in it, which is just so great because that stupid piece of thing to Florence was supposed to be, oh, look how good of a parent I am. And she gets locked in it for being the worst one of all time. He's making art and all this stuff, just basically mocking her. He calls it the trial of the mother of the fucking decade. Maybe workshop the title a little, bud. He's gonna leave her to be admired by everybody, because that's what she wants. Florence pleads, but what about the killer? And Theo says, well, if you survive the night, then we know you're the killer. And if you die, all you're guilty of is being a scumbag of a human being. I gotta say, I love that I only pointed that stupid art thing out because I thought it was funny, and now it's actually coming back in an actual plot device way. We flash back to a scene where Florence gets an acceptance letter from the gallery for her project. She's extremely excited, but she's the only one who is. Oh hey, it's Slamus! Spencer instantly starts cutting her down, saying it's embarrassing that she's parading the family tragedy. Although I gotta say, Spence, that's a bit hypocritical considering the family tragedy is that much more tragic because of you. And the episode ends with them walking away and Florence screaming. Phew, so yeah. R.I.P. O'Keefe. Felt like her death was kind of in the vein of a mother smothering her crying child. I thought it was that kind of symbolism. Now I know what you're thinking. Longo, you must be forgetting something. No, there was no gentleman in this episode. Yeah, they seasoned of the witch dust, and had you told me that going in, I might not have expected to like this episode as much. So given the clear lack of the G-Man in this episode, we don't really have too much to add or subtract from our suspect list other than obviously O'Keefe being off of it. So instead of update our suspects list, which wouldn't end up being all that much, I decided let's go over all the unanswered questions that we still need in order to figure out this mystery. First question, does this mean that the gentleman is absolutely one of them? There wasn't nearly as much separation of the group as there normally is, so that could obviously mean that the gentleman didn't have time to make an appearance because of that, implying that yes, he is actually one of them. So these next two kind of intertwine a little bit. Is Spencer actually involved? He clearly set up that little escape room scenario, and yeah, he said there could only be one winner, but it's really hard to tell if there was actually enough oxygen in that tank to where both people could survive, because Florence was extremely selfish with it, and it seemed like at the end there was enough for her to possibly keep O'Keefe alive had she sacrificed like 2 or 3 breaths. Because say Spencer is involved, then why did the gentleman acidically burn his heart through his fucking chest? Speaking of, if they've clearly moved Spencer's body and we saw that the heart fell to the floor, implying that there is a hole through the entire mattress, how has nobody brought this up yet? Another question I have is, are we ever going to get any resolution on the Meryl situation? You could have very easily just killed him and no one would have blinked twice. Why have the scene where he's sleeping with Grace? Why was Afra in the thing? I need answers to these as well. And the last question, which I really want to bring up, it's easily forgotten because it's been a couple of episodes. What was the gentleman looking for in Seamus and Christie's room? Whatever it is, it's got to be really pivotal to what's going on. All in all, I found this episode to be highly entertaining and very interesting in the arcs it's going to set up for the rest of the season. Can't wait to see what happens to Florence. And speaking of Florence's outcome, I want to shout out Kay Cordingley for coming up with this really cool idea where the gentleman in the middle of the night goes over to Florence and doesn't hurt her, just taunts her. And so that way, when she ends up alive the next morning, she'll know that the gentleman came and no one's gonna believe her. I just think that opens up a lot of fun possibilities. Just wanted to shout out that fun idea. Okay, Detective Collective, as always, if my dumbass missed anything, please let me know, and let's figure out where this season is going. There's a lot of new stuff to talk about. So I'll see everybody next week for the new episode, and until then, I hope that time goes a lot better for you than Florence's parenting, which we all know is horrible.